final non-Nintendo product. And with that, we conclude the look back at Captain America's Super Soldier. This is the bit where I thank all my patrons, so thanks to all the people on the screen right now, and all the people that aren't on the screen right now that also contribute to my Patreon, and special thanks to Analog Man, Buy Mini-Me Branded Pregnancy Tests, Caden the Dingo, Dad, Devin Grandal, Dominic Chikoki, Dump Truck Parked in My Driveway, Evil Chicken, Homer821, Labcat, Lucas Raysevic, Magnus Ikemo Stavik, Mattias Bayes, Maximilian Kunzman, May Oris, Mizaki, Mrs. Minime, Peaceful Kumquat, Renegade, Review Disney Planes, Steel Kristenberry, Trixie Emerson, Writing on Games, and Zindictive. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. Links to my Patreon are in the description. You get some exclusive content and all that stuff. You can check it out. I also have a Twitter and a Discord and all that YouTube stuff that people have. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
In the criminal justice system, The Sims handheld games are separated across many different platforms. The Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS, and PlayStation Portable are among the most notorious. These are their stories.
Our story begins in January of 2003, where EA released a half-port, half-spin-off of The Sims on home consoles, which featured a mode called Get a Life. In this mode, you controlled a single sim and worked through different housing situations, completing goals, and just generally improving your sim's life. Fast forward to December, and EA released The Sims Bustin' Out on consoles, which expanded on this mode with some more story, some more depth, and some more character, featuring the ability to quote-unquote bust out, which just means you can visit other locations. It was an interesting twist on the usually more unscripted Sims formula, and it's definitely a topic for another video. EA contracted Washington-based Kryptonite Games to make the GBA version of Bustin' Out. Kryptonite were a relatively new developer at the time, and they'd specialized mostly in handheld movie game ports, a mix of both my niches on this channel. Most of their work had actually been for EA movie games up until Bustin' Out, and those are considered to be surprisingly good games. Shout out to Chamber of Secrets on the GBA. It's no surprise that EA trusted Kryptonite to make this. After setting up your character with some personality traits and some basic customization, the premise is that you're going to hang out with your uncle at his farm in a place called Sim Valley for the summer. This is all explained in a note from Uncle Hayseed where it's hinted that you're from Sim City, and the first thing you're to do is visit him. There's a pretty good first impression here. It has these goofy, cartoony graphics which are surprisingly good at keeping everything clear and distinct, and when you actually talk to Hayseed, you're introduced to the incredible dialogue. After Uncle Hayseed talked me through some tutorial basics, the first thing I did was tell my uncle I could understand why his wife left him. Obviously he was a little upset by this, so then I tickled him, and it was all good. This is when I kinda knew I was in for something else here. One false move and I'll genetically modify your crops. The dialogue throughout is for the most part always this fun. You can just tell the developers had a grand old time trying to write the most absurd lines ever. The system basically is try and say nice things to get people to like you and try and say mean things to get them to dislike you. You're presented with a random list of things to say for each character, and each character will respond to things differently, which only works because every single character is a stereotype. You'll have to judge how a stereotypical hippie would respond to all dialogue, so it's not a big loss. Around halfway through the game, I was really tiring of the grind for the same reasons Bustin' Out annoyed me. A big problem with all these games is that you can only play the mini-games once a day, so you need to wait a full day of in-game time just to play them again, and they're your main source of income. When the game asks you to make 10 grand for an objective, and each time you complete a mini-game you get more or less $300 depending on your level, then the tedium really begins to kick in. Or if you need to buy something from the store and the store doesn't have it in stock, you need to wait till the next day for the stock to change. It doesn't help that in these games, often finding objectives requires just just stumbling around and running into them at random, and sometimes they're really well hidden. I just can't imagine playing without a walkthrough for that very reason, so despite all the charm and all the improvements with herbs, I was still really tiring of this. That was until I pissed off Daddy Big Buck so much he threw me in a river, and I woke up with some rednecks in a swamp and spent an entire chapter here, which I thought would be awful, but it was actually really fun. The game just goes completely off the rocker with its story, and you meet a talking alligator named Lloyd, and you can even get eaten by these giant plants. It's like the game knew it was getting a bit tedious, so it just gives you a break by having this insane section with all this wacky fantasy stuff going on as you're trapped in this swamp. Also, the chickens here say they're from Hayseed's farm, which could be a mistake